Hello. I know the stream had a little less of a warning than others, so I'll see if people trickle in or not. Hopefully they do. Yeah, I guess just start. Thank you everyone for helping me get to 9,000 subscribers. Like I said, I enjoy making the videos, and I'm glad people like watching them. So um, hopefully see a few people trickle in. I see three people currently. If you can hear me, just shoot me a message to let me know. It's Serious Arc. Congrats on 9K. Thank you, and thank you for being here. Yeah, so if you have any questions, feel free to fire away. I know usually I fall really far behind, so the fact there aren't too many in here right now, probably good to start shooting in some questions. Coast Rocky Game Boy, hello, good to see you. Hello, Charged on PC. It's Serious Arc. Is Air Force One going to be a top 3 RMC? I could see it considering it looks like the mixture of Zadra and Untamed, and those are two of my three favorite RMCs. Well, I think two of my 4 or 5 top favorite RMCs, so very well could be a top 3 RMC. Hello, ex-coaster enthusiast. Hello, Kentuckian coasters, and hello, good usernames are overrated. Though that is a pretty good username. So like I said to anyone who was here previously, just start shooting messages. I'll try to keep up this time and not fall behind. Know that happens pretty much every time. Hello, Hang Time Thrills. Yeah, Coast Rocky Game Boy. I always have the slow mode on, but I always fall behind. Basically, I'm going to try my best to get ahead of the flood before that happens. Kentuckian coasters. What's the coaster that has the most sentimental value to you? Um, Yankee Cannonball is one, just because it's at one of my home parks, and I've been riding that ride for almost 2 decades. Superman, the ride Six Flags New England is another one, just because I've ridden that ride in pretty much all its different iterations, and it's still an amazing ride, one of my favorites. Hang Time Thrills, thank you. Um, Roland Bottiglia, did you like Michigan's Adventure? Yeah, so I think it's a nice looking park. Shivering Timbers is amazing, one of my favorite coasters, and the rest of the park may not be the best park from a coaster perspective, or especially compared to a lot of chain parks, but Shivering Timbers alone is an amazing ride. Then the water park there is pretty good too. Um, Coaster Rocky Game Boy, I believe Air Force One will be the ninth or 10th best RMC. I'm optimistic it'd be a little better than that, just considering how many airtime hills that ride has, and it looks like it has some pretty big elements too before the rapid barrage of airtime hills. Charged on PC, Busch Gardens Tampa or Busch Gardens Williamsburg. I've always preferred the Williamsburg park. I much prefer the European aesthetic, and the ride lineup there I think is a little more balanced in my opinion. And both parks are getting a huge plus with Pantheon and Iron Gwazi, so I don't think that opinion is going to change. Roland Bottigla, my profile picture, Shivering Timbers. It's a little hard to tell with how small the chat window is, but I think I can see those giant hills in there. Good usernames are overrated. Yeah, I agree. Great Nor'easter is an amazing SLC, and SLCs are good layouts. They're just usually too rough to appreciate them. But when they track well and have the newer trains, I enjoy those rides. Like look at Roller Coaster Mine and Energylandia. That's a genuinely good ride. Sure, it's overshadowed by the other coasters there, but it's still fun. Ex-coaster enthusiast, how many visits did you do to Europe and in what years? I've been to Europe in 2017, 2019, and 2021. Um, And I've been to Germany, Finland, Sweden, Spain. I've been all over. Yeah, it's kind of a long answer to that one, but I've done several different trips. It's good to focus on a specific country, finish a country before moving on from what I've found. Airtime Cinema, Thoughts and Palindrome. That ride looks really cool. The twisting first drop looks like it'd be one of those ones that has nice airtime and laterals combined. That stall over the road looks sick and should have great hang time. The barrel roll looks really fast and snappy, and then that spike with the little hump on it looks like it could be an underrated element. I'm looking forward to that coaster. Hang Time Thrills. There's two channels called Hang Time Thrills, and I'm the ripoff one. I was wondering when I saw two Hang Time Thrills comment on my video. I was thinking that was crazy if you change your profile picture in that short time. It's good to know there's actually two. Twisted Gwazi. What's your least favorite element you've ever experienced? Um, it's hard for me to think of a single element that's atrocious. Usually, I think of entire rides that are bad. Like Coaster Express, there isn't really any redeeming quality in that ride, so I'm almost thinking the Helix in that ride. But there's no one part Coaster Express is worse than any other. The whole ride is just bad. Charge on PC, I think I prefer Busch Gardens Williamsburg as well, but I haven't been to Tampa. I think it's split 50-50, which ones people prefer. Listen in the comments which Busch Gardens park you like best. It's Serious Arc. Where does Intimidator 305 land in your rankings? It's a borderline top 25 steel coaster for me. It is an amazingly intense ride, very fast paced. I just prefer rides that tend to have a little more airtime, my own personal tastes, but Intimidator 305 sets out to be intense and it does it. Andy Roman, do you have any plans to visit China? No imminent plans. I'll probably have to go there for work at some day, and I'll probably hit some parks when that happens. Roland Bottiglia, you should do a park versus park video. I've done a few park battles. I like to try to review the parks before doing the overall park battle, so there's some reference videos along with that. Charged on PC. If you had 5 days in Orlando, what parks would you go to? I would say do Islands of Adventure. This is assuming you're a big roller coaster fan. I'd say Islands of Adventure, Busch Gardens Tampa, SeaWorld Orlando, and I'd maybe say do 2 days at Disney Park hop and hit the main rides. Usually I'd say you want to do more time at Disney. So if you're more of a themed fan, I would say skip SeaWorld and Busch Gardens and do 4 days at Disney. Imperial Coaster. What would you say is your favorite B&M floorless coaster? Superman Krypton Coaster. I love the interaction with the quarry wall, and those inversions work well on that ride. Good usernames are overrated. Yeah, I agree. Boomerangs can be good too if they're smooth, especially with the newer trains that don't have much head banging. I find just boomerangs aren't super rideable just because how intense they are, and that's really no fault of the ride. If anything, it's a compliment. Imperial Coaster. What is your favorite coaster element? The two that come to mind for me, and I guess it's cheating. It's more of a sequence. Lightning Rod's quad down and Phoenix's airtime Bunny Hill finale. Both those are four amazing airtime moments back to back to back to back, and I love it. Coaster Rocky Game Boy. The stream is last 8 minutes. You're already 20 messages and 4 minutes behind. I'm gonna try my best to get caught up. Roland Bottiglia, what's the biggest ride breakdown you've experienced? So I've been evac'd from a few rides. I was evac'd on Talon's Lift Hill right before a thunderstorm, and so I had to. That was an interesting one because I had to bring the little platform up, and we had to evac and walk down while there were heavy winds going. I was evac'd from Oscar's Wacky Taxi's brake run and Shredder's brake run. Let's see what other ones I've been involved with. I've been on 3 railroads that have derailed and miniature trains that have derailed and had to walk back to the station. And then this past time I went to Walt Disney World, Rise of the Resistance did not work correctly the entire week I was there. It was in B mode the whole time. And, I've been on it before, and so it was kind of cool for me to see B mode in person for the first time. But I felt bad because everyone else I was with had never been on that ride before, so they never got to see the ride in A mode. I don't want to spoil it if you haven't been on Rise, but there are plenty of videos showing the difference between A and B mode on that ride. And I guess that just goes to show how Disney knew one of the effects was going to be so difficult to execute if they intentionally designed in a B mode that can go on so readily. Uh, Airtime Cinema, when do you think Six Flags New England will get a new coaster? So I've heard rumors there's a crane trying to take down Goliath, and that might happen this off season. I don't think we'll get a coaster next year. It's a little too soon. I can see one coming in 2023 though, and I hope it's the launch coaster at long last. Civilian Satellite, thank you for showing up, and thanks for congratulating me. Shade Del Rey, I'm new here. Kennywood's my home park. Yeah, I really like Kennywood. Good mix of old and new. Um, Imperial Coaster, I think something has happened with FC. An entire area is shut down for the season. Sorry, what's FC off the top of my head for the abbreviation? Um, Hayden Chan, congrats, man. What are your recommendation be for Olympia looping? I'm riding it in December. If you love positive G's, those 5 loops are amazing. The one thing just that I recommend going in with from a mentality, I thought Olympia looping was going to be amazing start to finish. Like all the helixes be intense too. From my experience, it was just the loops that were intense, but those loops were amazing. Just the rest of the ride was just okay. Powerhound, what do you think Six Flags will do with Le Monster Wooden Coaster at Laurent? I know there's been the rumors that RMC can't work in Canada. I have to think that'll be RMC'd at some point. It may be a while because Six Flags doesn't add marquee attractions to Laurent too often, but I have to think they'll happen at some point. Coaster fart. Runaway Mountain is better than the Superman clones. I prefer the flying coasters, but Runaway Mountain is a fun indoor coaster. It's Serious Arc. What's your biggest bucket list coaster? DC Rivals. I want to try that backwards seat with all that ejector airtime. X Coaster Enthusiast. What years did you go to Mexico, Japan, UAE? Mexico, I went in 2018 and 2019. Japan was 2018, and UAE was 2019. Civilian Satellite. Aside from Walibi, Belgium, are there any coasters on your Europe trip that you wanted to ride but missed? So Walibi, Belgium was obviously closed due to flooding, and I've never been to that park at all, so that was a bummer. For the parks I actually went to, I hit every major credit. I had to skip some kiddie coasters due to time, which, that was fine. There are still a few parks over there I want to get to. One of the ones that comes to mind, I know it's a smaller ride, but I want to get to Scar Summerland to ride Trannon just because it's a one-of-a-kind ride. And that's probably one of the ones that comes to mind. I know it's a smaller one, but I also just can't wait for Park Asterisk to open that new Intamin in, I think, 2023 now, Tutatis. Imperial Coaster, what do you think of Kangaroo's return to Kennywood? I'm not too surprised because they've brought back old rides before, and I'm glad that one's coming back because that one's super fun, one of the best flats there. Imperial Coaster, what do you think will happen to the rotor at Canobie? I hope that sticks around as long as it can because it's the fastest rotor in America and the fastest I've ridden anywhere. But, I know that's from a manufacturer that's no longer around. Many parks are getting rid of their rotors, so I know it might not have too long left. But, I'm going to just keep riding it until it leaves. Charge on PC, what's your favorite and least favorite hypercoaster? If Lightning Rod counts as a hypercoaster, that one, I know that one's a little debatable depending how you take the height measurement. If not, I'd go with Steel Vengeance for my favorite. Least favorite, I might be so. If you count Wicked Twister, that's probably one that comes to mind. Goliath, the Six Flags Magic Mountain is another one that's not my favorite. I don't hate the ride, just not one of my favorites. Imperial Coaster, Frontier City. Yeah, so I heard a rumor that Goliath at Six Flags New England might go to Frontier City. That was a while ago. I don't know if that's actually going to happen or not. It would look cool in their skyline, so who knows? Maybe that'll happen. Roland Batiglia, what brand of coaster do you think the new one at Dollywood will be? I'm thinking Mach because they tend to add rides in pairs, and Silver Dollar City got their Mach, so I wouldn't. And Time Travel has been reliable and a big hit, so I wouldn't be surprised if Dollywood got one too. Now, maybe it's not an extreme spinning coaster on the level of Time Traveler, but we've seen rides like Manta that are a ton of fun, and if you built like Manta SeaWorld San Diego with a spinning car, that'd be an amazing ride. Julian Dale, will you be riding Airy Forest One opening day? Probably not. I usually don't try to ride rides on opening day between the crowds and, the chance for a reliability issue. I plan to ride next year, just don't know when. Airtime Cinema, favorite SBF Visa. So I actually like the spinning car on what's it? Screaming Centipede because I think that's actually a pretty good layout for a spinning car, and that Bunny Hill has some airtime. There's probably a flat ride from them I like better, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. Like what's it? Those basically their version of the Chance Freestyle. That's a pretty good flat from them, so I'll say that. Airtime Mike, congrats. What do you look forward to most in 2022? Um, Not quite sure what I'm looking forward to most. I'm probably gonna try to go back to Europe at some point. Hopefully, get on Conda this time. Um, Imperial Coaster. What about Titan Track and Le Monster? That's another idea. The only thing is, I don't think Le Monster is that strong of a layout to begin with. So I'd prefer something a little more radical. For example, if Predator at Darien Lake, I think that's a genuinely good layout. It's just too rough. Good usernames are overrated. What's your favorite force on a coaster? I love airtime. Imperial Coaster, favorite sky ride. Um, if we're gonna count Mammoth Tree at Connieland, I'm gonna say that one, but that sort of cheats because it has a show scene and some thrill ride elements. But I have a traditional sky ride. I'll say the one that was removed from Lake Compounds because the views were amazing. I know I'm behind. I'm gonna try my best to get caught up. Charge on PC. What do you think King's Dominion will replace with Volcano? So we know Cedar Fair loves working with B&M. There was that leaked plan for a wing coaster a few years ago. I have to think that'll still happen, just be pushed back a little bit. Coaster Dash, hello? Coaster Rocky Game Boy, how many Sun-Keyed Butterflies and SPF compact spinning coasters have you ridden? So I don't have it open directly in front of me. I'd estimate probably at least 15 to 20 SPF Visa spinning coasters, and then I've only been on 2 different of those butterfly coasters. Roland Batiglia, how do you fund coaster trips? I worked hard through school, got a good job as an engineer, and some of my travels are work related, so I'm able to append to work leisure trips onto it, or work during the day and then sneak to a park at night. But my stamina for actually riding coasters is embarrassingly low. Any tips? I'm one who doesn't really get sick outside of swinging chips, so I have no problem riding them nonstop, and I absolutely love it. I'd say do whatever makes you happy. Twisted Gwazi, what's the weirdest coaster you've ever ridden? Gekion Live Coaster at Tokyo Joypalace comes to mind because it's a launched spinning coaster with an inversion that has like a Guitar Hero rhythm-based dark ride segment earlier in the ride. Kavanaugh Larson, have you any weird dreams about roller coasters? I usually don't remember my dreams. I'm sure I've had them, but like I said, I don't really remember them too often. Charge on PC. What's your favorite roller coaster soundtrack? I love the one on Helix at Liseberg. Andy Roman, how many coasters do you prefer over Rise of the Resistance? There wouldn't be more than like 20, I'd guess. But I haven't actually put that out on a list, but for example, someone asked me about Intimidator 305 earlier. I prefer Rise of the Resistance to Intimidator 305. So it's at least in my top 25 steel. I just don't know where it would place. It's Serious Arc. What are your thoughts on Swamp Fox? I haven't ridden it since June of 2020. When I rode it then, the back car was open. I think the back car was closed this year, but Swamp Fox was amazing. Very strong airtime with those buzz bars, and I love the ride. My thoughts haven't changed on it. Imperial Coaster, do you think Trabants will disappear by the 2040s? Possibly, but I have to think that you'll have the alternatives like the ones from SPF, Visa, and Chance, those freestyle rides. Coaster Rocky Game Boy. Canobie only has 3 coasters now. It feels like there's a hole. I have to think they'll add another coaster at some point, but I think their immediate plans are to expand that water park. That water park's really popular. Airtime Cinema, favorite Zamperla. I actually really like the Thunderbolt coaster at Coney Island. I know that's a polarizing ride, but the restraints don't bother me. I don't find it too rough, and I love the airtime and on those bunny hills, and the inversions have good whip and hang time. Coast Rocky Game Boy, I think you stated you're getting married in one of your recent videos. Is that true? I'm engaged, but no plans on a wedding yet, just because I'm waiting for the fallout of COVID to have some venues open up a little more because it's pretty busy to plan one right now. Imperial Coaster, do you think Blackpool Pleasure Beach will add a Mach Extreme spinning coaster? I don't think so because I think the spinning car on Icon is about as far as they'll go with that. Charged on PC, do you prefer Energylandia or Hershey Park? Easily Hershey Park. The coaster lineups are both excellent, but I prefer Hershey Park's atmosphere. It's serious RMC or Intamin. I think I prefer RMC, but Intamin's amazing too, and they have a little more variety in their rides. Kavanaugh Larson, what's your favorite type of element on a roller coaster? An amazing first drop. That's why sometimes with those launch coasters, I miss not having the traditional drop, or especially on some of those RMCs like Twisted Timbers and Storm Chaser. I really miss not having that first drop because they're so good in RMCs. Maki Joe, what's the weakest RMC in your opinion? Probably Goliath at Six Flags Great America. It's a very intense and fast-paced ride. It just has less elements than the other ones, but that just goes to show how good RMC is. David White, how's Boulder Dash running compared to around 10 years ago? So almost all my Boulder Dash rides take place in the front row. That's my favorite seat for airtime and smoothness. When Boulder Dash isn't running well, it gets bad towards the back of the train. So I'm not too in tune with what's going on with that because I only ride in the back maybe once or twice a season. But the front row ride is still as amazing as it was 10 years ago. Hello, Sky Guy R12 Turn. Imperial Coaster, have you checked out National Coasters? He does great work. Yep, I've seen some of his coasters on some of his videos on the obscure coasters. Coaster Dash top 5 countries you've been to for overall coaster lineups. In no particular order, United States, Germany, Japan. What are some other ones that are up there? Poland's really top heavy, but they don't have too much depth because it's basically 2 parks making up most of it. Dubai was really good too. I think those top 3 are pretty up there, but I'm not quite sure on some of the other ones. Bryce Games, Dream Coaster for what park? I'd love to see a Raptor at Canobie Lake Park. Obviously, they'll have to get it within the height limit, but I'm sure RMC could do it. Coaster Zealot, bad news. Coaster Express is going to be back to her job, destroying back to breaking necks. So I heard they're retracting that ride. I mean, can't get any worse, right? Arcade Warrior 712. Have you ever had to sneak a camera on a roller coaster? No. Anytime I film a POV, it's at a park that I've gotten permission from the operator or park to do so. It's not worth trying to sneak a camera on the ride just because it can A, get you kicked out of the park, B, respect the park's rules. They're there for a reason. And C, if you're trying to sneak a camera on, I'd be focusing more on like trying to hide that than enjoying the ride. And I'm there to enjoy the parks first and foremost, not film a video necessarily. Coaster Hockey Game Boy, what's the wackiest looking coaster you've seen in person? So I mean the RMC Raptors look pretty bizarre considering how unnaturally fast they move through the layout, especially the Gen 1 ones and their support structure. So I'll say that one. Wong, where are the best US parks right now in terms of operations? Disney and Universal felt pretty similar to past visits when I was down there last month, so I'd say those two. Good usernames are overrated. Are stand-up coasters really that painful? So I have a video going into the technique. Basically, what you want to do is you want to have the bicycle seat well below your crotch, so that way it's not hitting you during the ride. And then if the shoulder bar is jammed into your shoulders, your ears won't get head banging during the ride, and that's how I find them most enjoyable. Charge on PC, how do you feel about Wildcat Hershey Park? I like the ride up front. It's shaky, but I can enjoy it up there. It's bad towards the back of the train. Sky Guy R12 Turn, best non-Disney park you've been to. Silver Dollar City, love that park. Will Lima, think Top Thrill Dragster and El Toro will return next year. I think both rides will be running next year. El Toro had quite a bit of work on it when I was there a few weeks ago, and then Dragster, I have to think they'll get that ride going again, considering how big it is. Coast Rocky Game Boy. When will Steel Vengeance close forever? Cedar Point's takes a lot of pride in that ride and how much enthusiasts love it. I think they'll just keep that ride going as long as needed. Imperial Coasters. I hope Six Flags new CO does as good as Mike Spanos. I hope so too. When I saw he's from Spirit, I got a little worried though. Coast Rocky Game Boy. Why do you prefer Swamp Fox to El Toro? Swamp Fox has um, amazing elements start to finish. I find El Toro has a lull in the middle of the ride where it's just okay, and the finale is decent but not elite. When I say the finale, I'm referring to those low to the ground hills and those final bunny hills on the brake run. And I also love rides at Buzz Bars because of how much room you get. Um, I love El Toro too, but I think Swamp Fox is more well-rounded in my opinion. Coast Rocky Game Boy. El Toro is I think it's in my 11th or 12th wooden coaster. It's not my top 25 overall though. Bryce Games, what's the best coaster or ride concept you've ever seen? I have to give RMC a lot of credit for adapting old, decrepit wood coasters into elite rides. I mean, that was pretty innovative to come up with that. Imperial Coaster, I really want a new GCI at Coney Island. I don't think that'll happen, but I want to see that Zamperla double hard coaster because that looks like that would be an amazing ride if it tracks smoothly. Um, M. Don Black today. Do you consider RMC's real woodies? Yeah, if they have like the wood track, yes. They're different, but I mean, look at something like El Toro. That was prefabs were different structures too, but you know, ultimately it comes down if it's a good ride or not. That's the most important thing. David White, does your fiance like coasters? She more likes themed experiences. So, for example, she loves Disney and Universal. She likes roller coasters as long as they're smooth. The Quackets Coaster Channel. What do you think Dollywood's next coaster will be? I think it'll be a mock launch coaster to some extent, maybe with spinning cars. But I'm envisioning something of the size of Manta at SeaWorld San Diego. Sky Guy R12 Turn, top 5 parks in the world by their coaster collection. No particular order. Cedar Point, Six Flags Magic Mountain, Energylandia. Those are 3 that come to mind immediately. Hershey Park has to be up there too with Skyrush, Candemonium, and their other Intamins and B&Ms. Struggling to think what the next one would be though. I'm going to stop at 4. Imperial Coaster, have you ridden T-Express? I have not, but that's near the top of my bucket list because I love Balder and love the start to El Toro, and that looks like the perfect marriage of the two. Sky Guy R12 Turn, Hershey Park, or Kings Island? I much prefer Hershey Park. Kings Island's a great park too, but Hershey Park has I like the overall feel of that park more in the coaster lineup. Reese Smith, I think Canobie should open for Christmas. I'd love to see it happen. I've heard that any future edition is being weatherproofed so that it can open for Christmas, but I just think they need to have staffing to do it, and I feel like that'd be a concern for them. Imperial Coaster, what do you plan to have as your 1,200th credit? I don't know. I don't plan that far out which one that would be. Roland Bottiglia, have you been to CJ Barrymore's? I have not. I almost went to it on one of my trips last year, but I had to cut it out when weather mixed up my days for Cedar Point. Trim Break 6. Do you have any idea why Bombay Express is testing with only 7-car trains? I do not. I haven't been following that product too closely, but whenever I've looked at it, I've been impressed how many airtime hills that ride has. Sky Guy R12 Turn. Sorry for the loss of your icon. The Canobie Corkscrew is always a very photogenic ride, but it wasn't the best ride from a coaster perspective. So I think the Canobie can use that space better, to be honest. Shard 9001. Can't remember if you talked about it, but how you feel about Thunderbolt at Kennywood. It's a pretty good wooden coaster. Great laterals, and the finale with the dips in the ravine are fun. Coast Rocky Game Boy, Iron Rattler is the worst or second worst RMC in terms of quantity, but overall it's nowhere near that status. The elite elements on Iron Rattler are amazing. So I know I'm about 7 minutes behind the comments, so if possible, try to slow down. I'll get caught up, and then you can post more. Sorry, I always fall behind. I know that happens. Hello, Arhan Hendricks, Imperial Coaster. Do you plan to visit Bell's Amusement Park when it opens? Yeah, when it opens, maybe it's not one I'm going to rush out to, but I'm sure I'll get there eventually. Civilian Satellite. How's the learning curve for Americans learning to drive in Europe? So I've only driven in countries where you drive on the right side of the road. But the key thing for me is to look up road signs in advance so I know what they are going in. For example, there's those signs where you might have to yield to someone coming down the road because you can only fit one car, and also know what the speed limit signs mean. But access predictions, I imagine I'll go to a Six Flags park, just not sure which one at this time. Coast Rocky Game Boy, have you done a trip to the UK? Yep, I went there in 2017 to Thorpe, Chessington, Alton Towers, and Blackpool. Sky Guy R12 Turn. Speaking of losses, do you know how many coasters you've ridden before they close forever? Yes, I have that listed. I just don't have the number off the top of my head. I'm guessing it's probably in the ballpark of 50, maybe, but that's just a rough guess. Twisted Gwazi, what's your favorite inversion of all time? Um, I'd have to maybe think that through what it would be, but I'm leaning towards the flying snake dive on Ride to Happiness. The sustained hang time with a spinning car was amazing. Imperial Coaster, what do you think Canobie will remove next? The corkscrew, but after that, I have to think Tall Timber Splash because once they expand the water park, that ride's redundant and would open up a good plot for maybe a new coaster. Um, Airtime Cinema, thoughts on Big Dipper at Luna Park? Um, I'm impressed Intamin crammed that ride into the space they did, and while it may not look as intense as the RMC Raptors, I'm excited to see Intamin building those single rails. It's Serious Arc. How much time do you spend filming off-ride footage at a park? So that depends. So I like to try to get as much footage as possible when I'm in line for a ride, or if I see a ride going, I'll take it then and there. So for example, if you look at a park like Hershey Park, the footage I have from there is spread across, I'd say like a half dozen visits over 2 years. So um, it just depends. Like I don't like to eat into my time at the park if possible. Um, Shooter McGavin 1605. Love your videos. Appreciate the work you put in them. Please keep doing what you're doing. Thank you. Yeah, I enjoy making them. Um, where was I? Hello, GTC coasters. Sejonius, hello. Yep, I'm looking forward to Air Force One. That ride looks amazing. Charge on PC, least favorite B&M, Apocalypse at Six Flags America when it ran as the stand-up, and was my favorite SNS. Off the top of my head, I have to think it's Max Force, but I might be forgetting. Oh, sorry, no, Edge and Ica. That ride's amazing. Kavanaugh Larson, Suck Silver Dollar City caught on fire recently. On the bright side, I'm sure they'll build it up. That park always makes things look nice. It might look empty, this year and next year. But then again, I saw they already put up a fence up with lights. So, Coast Rocky Game Boy, what was that bike ride at Legendia? So it was a self-operated looping bike ride. I had seen that before at the Museum of Science at Boston when I was a kid, but I was too short to ride it. And I think Wonderworks has a similar ride too. It was pretty cool. Sky Guy R12 Turn, five favorite Intamins. I'm really bad at just naming things like that off the top of my head, but the ones that come to mind for me are Expedition G-Force, Sky Rush, Balder, Velocicoaster, Millennium Force. If you watch my top 25 overall coasters from last year, that'll probably answer that question a little better and more eloquently. Imperial Coaster, what do you think Nagashima Spyland will add next? I'm not sure what they'll add next. They're kind of random with what they add. Maybe they'll add an access coaster. Like I said, it's hard to predict with that park. Coasters out there building a new coaster at Parque Warner. Oh, that'd be amazing if they get a new coaster because that park hasn't gotten a new major coaster since opening day, I believe. Lucas, what coaster logo is your favorite on top of your head? Millennium Force is a classic one I like. Fury 325s looks amazing too. The Quackens Coaster Channel, will you do a top 50 overall instead of just 25 at the end of the year? Maybe. I like to break it down versus wood and steel. So there'll be like a top 50 list for those two, like last year, and maybe just a top 25 overall again, because that list kind of gets redundant after you've done the wood and the steel, because I've already given my justification for the rankings, and it kind of just feels like I'm cut and pasting when I do another list like that back to back. Imperial Coaster, favorite Wisdom Rides ride? Tiger Terror. That ride is amazing with the lights and laterals and airtime pops. Civilian Satellite, which of your videos are you most proud of? Probably my Canobie Lake Park review, just because that, that one had almost 3 decades of experience going into that. Good usernames are overrated. What's your favorite non-coaster ride? Rise of the Resistance at Disney. That's better than most coasters. Bryce Games will Pantheon top Velocicoaster. I think Pantheon will be more thrilling, but it might be hard to beat Velocicoaster's overall package with the theming and length. Maki Joe, best coaster related game. I love Planet Coaster. A lot of detail in that game as long as you have a powerful QB. Not QB, computer. Sorry, I don't know where that came from. Imperial Coaster, favorite family fun center. It's hard to figure out what's an FEC versus just an amusement park nowadays. But one I like a lot is Fun World in New Hampshire. They have an Orient Express kiddie coaster, but that's not why you go there. They have a lot of pinball machines I like. Coaster Rocky Game Boy, are you planning any trips for 2022? I don't have anything planned yet for 2022 just because I'm, for example, if I were planning a Europe trip right now, COVID regulations could change between now and then, so I want to wait for that to happen. Keith the King, what do you think King's Dominion will get to replace Volcano? I think it'll be a B&M wing coaster based off the leak that happened, I think a year ago at this point, and how Cedar Fair likes working with B&M. Imperial Coaster, I heard from an engineer at Frontier City that Rapids water pumps are not working. So that ride's been closed every time I've been in Frontier City. I think it was closed all of 2020, if I remember correctly, which is a shame because it looked like it was a pretty cool Rapids ride. Hello, R. and Hendricks. What makes you a roller coaster fan? I've always liked them for as long as I can remember. My parents took me to Storyland, Santa's Village, and Canobie as a kid, and I couldn't wait till I went back. I just love the theming and the thrills you can get. Trim brake 6. Do you like Woody's to be smooth as possible or have a little bite to them? So while I have a high tolerance, I prefer a ride to be smooth. Insane Coasters, is Ride to Happiness better than Steel Vengeance? I think Steel Vengeance beats it because it's a longer ride, but I think Ride to Happiness is funner for what is funner in the time that it lasts. Good usernames are overrated. Do you ever plan on making a Discord server for your channel? So there already is one. I'm just not super active on it because I don't use Discord too often. Sky Guy R12 Turn. I do plan to make a defunct coaster video at some point. Trim Break 6. If you could have ridden Condo, where do you predict it could have ranked? Possibly top 10. I've heard that ride does need to take a lot to warm up, though. Imperial Coaster. Have you ever encountered a Karen at an amusement park? I'm sure I have. I don't really want to bring up specific incidents like that because those types of incidents aren't necessarily funny as much as sad to see. Coaster Rocky Game Boy. Difference between a flying snake dive and a dive loop. It's a dive loop that twists on the descent as well, so it's super disorienting. Magic Coasters. What are your thoughts on the Knott's Giga Coaster rumor? I hope it happens. That park needs a capacity monster, and they certainly, a Giga Coaster would really help their lineup out. Imperial Coaster X2 or Twisted Colossus? Twisted Colossus, just because how much airtime that ride has. Airtime Cinema, what do you think Bizarre will be rethemed to with the new paint? So it looks like the Aquaman colors, but the park did make a Riddle Me This hint, so I'm thinking it'll be some type of Riddler ride. Imperial Coaster, do you think Kentucky Kingdom will be Silver Dollar City or Wild Adventure? I think somewhere in between because they are near Louisville, which is a decently sized city, and they really have some gaps to work with there. Bud, what's your favorite layout, not objective? Superman at Six Flags New England's amazing. How it combines an out and back with a twister, and Hyperion does something similar. M Dawn Black today. Yeah, I'd love if they even put Titan Track on Wildcat because the layout's good. It's just rough. Roland Bottiglia, have you ever ridden an unlicensed ride from a manufacturer? I'm not sure, to be honest. Sorry. Um, Imperial Coaster, do you think Air Force One will be a top 10 ride in the USA? I think it will. It looks like RMC's greatest hits. Jimbo Jambo 22 as a Canobie employee. I love your content. Thank you. And I mean, every employee I meet at Canobie is super friendly. So keep doing a good job. Coaster Zealot, good night. Bryce Games, favorite thrill ride. I assume you mean favorite non-coaster. Black Mamba Wiener Prater is one I rode recently. That ride was amazing. If you don't know what a Fun Time Chaos Pendle is, take a look. Those rides are crazy. Sky Guy R12 Turn. Which parks do you have a childhood relationship with before you became an enthusiast? So the ones I went to a lot were Canobie, Storyland, and Santa's Village, which all three are great parks for a young person. Coaster Hockey Game Boy, largest theme park in the USA you have not been to. Probably Shanghai Disneyland. And I really hope to get there at some point because I love the Disney parks. Matt Rupp, how are you able to pump out videos so quickly? It's very impressive. I'm pretty quick at video editing because I did a lot in college. And then when I go to a park, I usually just have like a Google Doc where I just make quick notes on rides I've been on so I can easily recount my experience and articulate it. Twisted Gwazi, do you think Air Force One or Iron Gwazi will be better? I'm looking more forward to Air Force One because it has more elements, but Iron Gwazi looks amazing too. Bryce Games, best manufacturer for thrill rides. Fun Time makes a lot of crazy ones. Hello, Sodi the Gorilla. Oh, crap, I fell behind again. Imperial Coaster, favorite theme park food. I love the pretzels at the SeaWorld Busch Gardens parks. User 3723, strongest airtime moment you've felt on a B&M. Fury 325 has some great airtime. Coast Rocky Game Boy, how long did it take for you to plan your Europe trip this year? It came out of nowhere. So I had to go over there for work, so it was pretty last minute, and then I just, on the fly, add some amusement parks based off the restrictions. Cedar Point Fanboy IRL, how you afford your amazing coaster trips? I'm an engineer, worked hard through school to get a good job, and some of my trips are work related, so I can add a coaster trip on top of it. T43, I think unknown. Ever going to do a King's Dominion coaster review? I plan to at some point, but I'd like to get back there before doing it because I don't have any video footage I took. Because I think I've mentioned this before, but before late 2019, I only took pictures of parks and not videos. Imperial Coaster, do you think Over George will add a Max Force clone? Might not be a clone, but I'd love to see another one. But the one thing with Max Force that's still an issue is I think it's still making too much noise, and they've already put soundproofing in place. So I'm interested how that'll come into play. And also, I know that ride had some reliability issues towards the beginning. So the Gorilla Shockwave in the back is amazing. Trim Break 6, where do you think the Chinese GCIs would rank for you? Wood Coaster looks amazing because I love terrain-based rides, and those GCIs over there are super long. So I wouldn't be surprised if one or two of them made my top 10 wood. Jimbo Jambo 22, what do you think about the removal of Goliath at Six Flags New England? I wish that ride was still, I wish that ride still had the original trains because it's a good ride. It's just the new trains made it too rough. Crooked Reality, amazing work on the channel. How often do you go on solo trips, and do you ever go to a park with fellow online enthusiasts? Let's go from Boston. So it all depends because sometimes I have a work trip that I don't have too much warning for. Other times I just go to parks with my friends or family, and so I'm just trying to hang out with them. I usually like to try and meet people in fans, through an enthusiast event rather than just meeting someone I don't necessarily know. No offense to anyone I haven't met, just that's how I've always been with the socializing. Um, that's why I don't really announce when I go to a park, just because I'm there to have fun. If you see me, feel free to say hi, and I'll say hi back. Airtime Cinema, best 1-2 punch. Energylandia is a pretty good one with Hyperion and Zadra. Um, Magic coasters. Do you think Lagoon is worth a 10-hour drive? I've done crazier drives for roller coasters, and Lagoon's an amazing park. Sheer McGavin 1605. How do you choose topics of your videos? Any criteria to follow? Not really. I kind of just pick rides I have a strong opinion about. Good usernames are rated. What's the most sketchy ride you've ridden? I guess I'd have to say Chimera at La Feria. Considering when I rode that ride, you know, they had to, they had to take a lot of they had a minimum rider requirement, and it was closed the second time I went back there, and unfortunately the accident happened. But I guess I'll say that one. Joseph Levesque, I'm an enthusiast. The only good park I've been to is Silver Dollar City. What park do you suggest I go to next? Um, it depends where you're coming from, but some of the other parks in the Midwest that are really good. Holiday World's an amazing park, great wood coasters. If you can get down to Texas, Six Flags Over Texas and Six Flags Fiesta Texas are two of the best Six Flags parks. Carson Mason Cole 1, if Grayscape ever built a new coaster, where would you put it without tearing down any coaster? So the thing with Grayscape is they have some swampland, so it's hard to tell, where they can put a new ride. I'd love for them to reuse that Nightmare building. Maybe a mock family spinning coaster would be amazing in there. Look at Spider-Man at IMG Worlds of Adventure. That ride's amazing. Derek S., what do you think is the most likely coaster in the Northeast to be open in wintertime in the coming years? Thunderbolt at Six Flags New England's already open. Oh, crud, I fell behind again. Sky Guy R12 Turn. Yep, my name's Mike. Sky Guy R12 Turn. Are you a college student? Nope, I graduated 6.5 years ago. Twisted Gwazi. What's the most powerful moment of positives you've ever experienced? Not necessarily the most sustained, just the strongest in terms of sheer force. One that comes to mind is Texas Tornado at Wonderland. If you look how those drops are profiled, most drops are supposed to have a narrower crest and a wide pullout. It's the opposite on Texas Tornado, so you get a very sharp and sudden burst of positives on that ride. Magic coasters. You're a beginning enthusiast and looking for a new trip. Pennsylvania is a great park because you have, Pennsylvania is loaded with parks like Kennywood, Knoebels, Hershey Park, and you're also near a bunch of other parks too. Like you can get to the ones in New Jersey, New England, and Virginia pretty easily. Kentuckian coasters. Do you hate or love Beast? I love the experience at night. It is a flawed coaster though. Bryce Games, Busch Gardens Tampa Giga Coaster. I'd love to see that happen at some point, but I feel like they're more likely to get some sort of B&M hyper, even with Mako nearby. Scott Stewart, will you be going to Magic Mountain to ride the new Wonder Woman RMC coaster? Because I have Jersey Devil nearby, I wouldn't necessarily make a trip to Magic Mountain exclusively for the new RMC, but if I'm in California, I see no reason why I wouldn't go there because I love that park. Jeremy C., I live in Green Bay. Thank you for bringing attention to Zip and Pippin. You were one of the first, and now many others have come up here. So I think Airtime Thrills deserves a lot of credit for getting that ride on the radar for a lot of enthusiasts. Bryce Games, what do you think about El Locos? Very interesting rides. I like the one at Adventure Dome best that has the untrimmed drop because that drop's amazing without a brake run. Bryce Games, best terrain coaster. My favorite coaster is Lightning Rod, and it's a terrain coaster, so I'll pick that one. Trim Break 6, what's the most underrated coaster lineup you've experienced? It's an amazing lineup, but I'm going to say Hershey Park just because I think it's in the discussion for one of the best lineups in the country, and usually it's considered an afterthought behind Magic Mountain and Cedar Point, but I think it's almost as good as those parks now, to be honest. Yoshimongo, do you have a favorite and least favorite train or restraint? So I love Buzz Bars just because it makes you can easily experience airtime. Least favorite train or restraint, I'm going to go with the shin guards on Coast Guard at Knott's Berry Farm because it took a ride that was, a comfortable but boring Wild Mouse, made it one of the most painful rides in the world. Sky Guy R12 Turn, closest park that comes to your favorite Six Flags Park. I'm a bit confused by the question, but the best Six Flags Park I can do a day trip to is Great Adventure, just because how big that lineup is. Um, Airtime Cinema was 2021 the best year Wicked Cyclone ever ran. It ran similar this year to it did its opening year, but I've gotten fast and slow rides at various points on that coaster. Bryce Games, favorite kiddie coaster model. Myler makes some great kiddie coasters. Good usernames are rated. What park should I try to go to? I'm a Mid-Atlantic enthusiast. I've been to Hershey Park, Great Adventure, and Busch Gardens. If you can get to Florida at some point, those parks are amazing for theming, and they're getting a lot of new stuff lately. XY Bite, I am not going to watch Beatles get back. I'm not a big Beatles fan. Roland Bottiglia, have you ever gotten hurt in a ride? Yes, so I actually partially tore my meniscus on Nothing But Net at Zero Gravity last year. I made a review on that ride. Amazing experience. How I got hurt was my fault, just because you drop with no cables, and I guess I sort of panicked, unconsciously on my last ride and landed poorly and hurt my knee. And thankfully it healed, but it definitely hurt. Bryce Games, how do you feel on Mac Extreme Spinners? If you see my Ride to Happiness review, I love them. Adds a lot of variability to your rides, and anytime you can spin even through a basic element, it makes it exciting. Twisted Gwazi, I'm a Florida enthusiast. We say I should prioritize Cedar Point or parks closer to me, like Carowinds and Over Georgia. I prefer Cedar Point to that, but if you can easily get to those parks near you, I'd say go for it, because those are some good parks in the South. Keith the King 25, what do you prefer, Steel Vengeance or Lil Phantom? I'm not going to answer that because I will get canceled if I do. Civilian Satellite, favorite theme park holiday event? I'm going to go with the old Christmas at Silver Dollar City. I love that park, and Christmas is an amazing time to experience it with all the lights and the fact they have so many rides open. Airtime Cinema, would you ever want Boulder Dash to be RMC'd? No, because the ride is elite as is, in my opinion. I'd rather let compounds use the money otherwise. XY Bite, is New Texas Giant really the weakest RMC? It's a very good ride. It has great length. It's just not as extreme as the later RMCs. But it makes sense. It was a prototype. Sorry, I'm still trying to get caught up. I think I'm only 2 minutes behind at this point, which is not too bad. Imperial Coaster, do you think Frontier City could add a new major coaster? Yeah, I think it would probably be a clone, though, like maybe something like a free spin. Oh, and Bryce Games, how do you feel about free spins? They're nice compliments in a lineup because they, if they're run correctly, you can get a lot of flips. I'd love to see one run like Arashi and Nagashima, because that ride was amazing, but the ones in America seem to be a lot tamer. Airtime Cinema, smallest coaster for the best airtime, Rorosaurus. That thing is an airtime machine. Tostillo Smith, will you prefer RMC on Wildcat or Lightning Racer at Hershey Park? I think RMC Lightning Racer would be more interesting, but I think Wildcat needs it far more. Imperial Coaster, do you think shuttle loops can make a comeback? I think newer launch coasters are going to try to pack more elements in as opposed to having that long launch track. But I think a lot of shuttle coasters that are with more elements are here to stay. Yoshimongo, what large park like 10 plus coasters would you say is the weakest lineup or needs to ride the most? What's that park in Japan, Greenland? How many coasters does that one have? I think it's close to 10, because that lineup's pretty weak. Yeah, I don't have it right in front of me, so it's hard for me to say. But if you're looking at a park with 10 plus coasters, you're sitting there asking yourself, that's a lot of clones, and there's nothing that really stands out. I think that's an issue in my opinion. Tosia Smith, what coaster do you think Hershey Park is going to do next? I wouldn't be shocked if they have another B&M coming down the road with Candomonium, because that ride's really popular for them. Roland Bottiglia, I have not been stung by being a coaster. Trim Break 6, is it just me or is the steel Typon testing footage comically insane? Anytime you have a spinning car, even layouts that don't look too crazy are going to be crazy. Sky Guy R12 turn. Would you like to see Boulder Dash get a GCI Titan track? I prefer that over RMCing because that would help make the ride smooth in all rows. Twisted Gwazi, what is your favorite individual experience you've ever had on a coaster? Probably riding Lightning Rod the first time because that ride was closed my first 3 visits to the park. And the time I finally could ride it, I tore my ankle, so it was a bit of a challenge to get up to the station. But got on the ride, loved it, and ended up riding I think like 25 times that weekend, so I made up for lost time. Um, Sody the Gorilla, what are the seatbelts like on Mr. Freeze? There are no seatbelts that go on your lap. It's just a redundant one that attaches to the lap bar. Airtime Cinema, thoughts on the water coaster going to Quasi? That's going to be a great addition for their water park that they just keep expanding. It doesn't look like it'll have too much airtime compared to other water coasters, but it looks like it'll have nice pacing. Keith the King 25, I am excited for the new Lost Island theme park. It reminds me of a European theme park with a lot of theming, and I love theme parks more than amusement parks. Imperial Coaster, do you think Frontier City could remove their log flume? That looks like one of their best rides. It was closed when I was there, but I hope they don't. XY Bite, is Valraven really a bad B&M dive? I like Valraven. I know it's a popular coaster to hate, but it has a great views, good drop, and it has some hang time. Sky Guy R12 turn, will you move to Spain just because you've been hired at RMC Coaster Express? I'm a mechanical engineer, but I'm very happy where I live currently near my family and fiance, so I'm going to say no. Good usernames are overrated. What's your favorite inversion on a roller coaster? Ride to Happiness, Flying Snake Dive. Hang time and spinning is amazing. Bryce Games, best B&M model. I will go with the Hypercoaster or Giga. I love sustained airtime and those rides deliver it. Civilian Satellite, excluding coaster YouTubers, have you ever met any well-known figures in the amusement industry? Not meeting in person per se, but back when I was in college, I was trying to get an internship at an amusement company, and I had a phone call with Jeff Pike that was pretty cool because I've seen all the rides he's designed over the years. Magic Coasters, why do you think the West doesn't have any B&M hyper coasters? I think it's just because of how those rides are expensive, and with earthquake code over there, I'm not sure if they'd have to use more supports or not. Then again, B&M probably over designed their rides anyway. That's the only thing that comes to mind there. Derek asks, will Lake Compounds ever get a new coaster? I've heard rumors they're going to add a spinning coaster at some point, which would be a nice compliment to the lineup because they don't have a true family coaster, in my opinion. Imperial Coaster, what do you think of Tornado Adventureland? It's not too rough for me, but it doesn't do a whole lot. Twisted Gwazi, what's your hottest take relating to coasters? Probably that Osiris is the best B&M invert. Kentuckian Coasters, what's your most painful experience on a coaster? Look at my Coaster Express review, and that'll answer your question. Trim Break 6, what night ride makes the biggest difference on said coaster? Probably Beast at Kings Island, because it goes from a ride that's just okay during the day to one that's an amazing experience at night. Sky Guy R12 turn, least favorite restraints. As I mentioned earlier, Coast Riders shin guards, because they're basically hot panini presses on your shin that make a ride that has no right being bad atrocious. Yoshimongo, do you have a favorite clone coaster next to the Raptors? Batman on the Ride's a great clone. I'm sure there's another one that's skipping my mind. Tostio Smith, are Halloween events better earlier or later in the season? And my favorite Halloween event. So I like them better because they're usually a little less crowded, especially when you go into September. People aren't necessarily in a Halloween mindset yet. My favorite Halloween event is easily not Scary Farm. They have most of the rides open, and the haunts there are great. Okay, I'm only 2 minutes behind. I'll try to get caught back up. XY Bite, thoughts on Six Flags working with B&M once again? I think that's great. They might not add a massive B&M or anything, but if they're willing to spend about $15 million on a ride, I think Ride to Happiness costs that. So I'd love to see, rides of that price tag come in. Imperial Coaster, what do you think of Larson Loops? Great hang time, decent flat ride, but not something I ride too often. Bookum Dookum, yes, I do work for a healthcare company. As a mechanical engineer, I make care products. Bryce Games, worst experience on a coaster? Coaster Express. rough, painful, and I rode that right before a transatlantic flight and regretted that flight home because my back hurt. Imperial Coaster, favorite water park slide. Krakatoa at Volcano Bay. I have a review on that one, but a lot of airtime for a water slide. Roland Bottiglio, what's the scariest amusement park experience other than the rides? Like something happened to you? Um, I I don't have one coming immediately to mind. I guess the only one I can think of is at Six Flags Mexico. The first time I was there, I was having some issues with the altitude at Mexico City, and I was getting a nosebleed. And at Six Flags Mexico, the employees are nice, but they don't speak much English there. And so I only speak a little Spanish, so I was really struggling to convey what had happened. I think they were panicking because I thought, like, someone beat me up in line or I was in a fight. No, I just naturally got a nosebleed. I get them, unfortunately, I get them randomly. Um, and so it took a while just to get, I just literally needed someone to direct me to a bathroom so I could get some paper towels, and that took a while. Um, Pennsylvania amusements. Will you ever collab with other coaster YouTubers? Yeah, I'd be open to it. Just the one thing that with that is just, I have a certain routine for making videos, and obviously it's different when you collab with someone, but if you can make something cool with it, I'm open to it. Magic Coasters. Who's your favorite coaster YouTuber? I'm a big fan of review videos and countdowns. So, I look for specific videos that, for example, if I'm going to a park for the first time, I try to look up review videos for the rides and attractions there to get some idea what I can experience. Doc McFuzzball. How are you able to go all over the world to ride and review so many coasters? And what first sparked your passion for coasters? My parents took me to Storyland Sands Village as a kid. I always loved them. And then I am a mechanical engineer. So, I worked hard through school, got a good job, and I travel for my job. And I also can, that job supports my travels. Twisted Gwazi, do you prefer many quick pops of ejector or sustained floater? I prefer sustained airtime moments. Sodi the Gorilla, Titan at over Texas is closed. Oh, that's a bummer. That one, it has some good positive G's. Sky Guy R12 turn. What elements will you put on RMC Coaster Express? The one I always imagine, because they have that long curve drop, I imagine like a barrel roll descent that's curving. It would be funky, but I could see RMC trying it. Imperial Coaster. Do you think cyclones are just bigger wacky worms? Hey, they have a little airtime in those. Wacky worms usually don't have airtime unless you're riding one with a broken lap bar and no brakes like the one at Negro Land. Bryce Games, would you go to Six Flags Qiddiya if it opens? I'd definitely be tempted. I'd try to do multiple things if I went over there, though. Keith the King, wouldn't it be fun if RMC if GCI put some Titan track and Coaster Express? The problem is that layout's not good to begin with. Alpha Swirl, what's the best stand-up coaster you've ever been on? I love Riddler's Revenge, very forceful. Oh, crap, I fell behind again, sorry. If you guys could pause posting comments again, I'd really appreciate it so I can get caught up. I think I'm only 2 or 3 minutes behind. Yeah, I'd just like to try to get caught up if possible. XY Bite, worst coaster you've ever ridden? Coaster Express, I have a review on it. The ride's awful. Yoshi Mongo, is there ever a coaster most people want to be RMC'd that you would not want to be RMC'd? Objectively, I know RMCs are probably going to improve a ride at any time, so I really can't think of one that comes to mind. Tostio Smith, is Cedar Point going to permanently lose 2 launch coasters this year? I think Top Thrill Dragster is going to reopen. Good usernames are overrated. Do you think Six Flags will start to make a comeback financially in the future? Their last CEO did a good job, so I hope that continues. Bryce Games, best SNS and Aero 4D coaster. Egenica. It's bigger and wilder the next 2. It is a little rougher though, but I'll take the extra beating for the insanity. Imperial Coaster, what do you think of the Bermuda Triangle at Hurricane Harbor, OKC? I've never been to that park, so I don't know. Coaster Fanboy, I do think Knott's Berry Farm will get a Giga Coaster, just because that park needs a capacity monster. They have the attendance to support it, and putting out into the parking lot would make sense. Civilian Satellite, what parks change if you held season passes for? the Palace Entertainment Park, Six Flags, Cedar Fair, Canobie Lake Park, and Hershey Park. User 3723, best trapdoor slide. Oh, and actually, back on the previous one, I had a Disneyland season pass for 1 week till they shut down due to COVID. So basically, and then they refunded me. So basically, I went to Disneyland 6 times in a week for $40, which was a pretty good deal. User 3723, best trapdoor slide you've ridden. I love Poseidon Voyage at Whale's Tail. Steep drop and a very forceful turn. Tosia Smith, is Mike short for my cycle? No. Yoshimongo, do you have a favorite non-coaster water slide or just a type of water slide? I'm a big fan of those drop pod slides. The plunge is always thrilling. Usually you feel yourself lift off the slide a little bit, and they usually have a forceful turn or two. Imperial Coaster, do you think Frontier City would remove their Ferris wheel? I don't think it's in a imminent danger, considering it's from Chance and you can still support those rides. Tosia Smith, how long will it take for the first wooden hybrid invert to be built? I'm not sure if that's going to happen. Doc McFuzzball, thanks for taking my questions. Appreciate your approach. Thank you. Imperial Coaster, what do you think of Bandit Movie Park Germany? I didn't think it was as bad as people say, but it still was not a good ride, so I hope it gets RMC'd. Yoshimongo, worst steel coaster you've ridden? Coast Rider is one that comes to mind, but the one that is the absolute worst I've ridden is Blue Tornado at Gardaland. It's the roughest SLC I've been on, and there's no padding on the restraints. Airtime Cinema, best manufacturer for small, cheap clones. I guess this is a little bit of a cheat here, but Gravity Group's small family wood coasters, while they haven't exactly cloned the same layout, those would be amazing rides to clone because they're compact and pack a punch. Tosia Smith, when will RMC a steel coaster? I was always wondering if they could do something with one of those hybrids, like, for example, Excalibur at Valley Fair. That would be an interesting one. Alpha Swirl, do you think Air Force One will top Steel Vengeance? I don't think it has the length, but it looks amazing. Sody the Gorilla, what place does Judge Roy scream placing your list of the top 10 at Six Flags Over Texas? Borderline top 10, because it has a few good airtime hills, but it's mostly a dud. Airtime Cinema, best log flume not at a major park. Not at a major park. So Fluctus Pharaoh at Belantis, I don't know if you count that as a log flume because it's in a raft, but that one's amazing. And I also love the one at, what am I thinking of? Lagoon Asia. There's this log flume with this really cool dark ride segment that's a lot of fun. Coasters in Perspective, Jersey Devil, overrated or underrated? In the back row, it's amazing. That drop is one of the best on any coaster. And I do like the flow of the elements now that the mid-course doesn't bite hard. Yoshimongo, which California park do you think a B&M or Intamin Hyper would be the best fit at? I think Knott's Berry Farm needs it most, and I hope that takes the place of a Giga. Sky Guy R12 Turn, do you watch Hershey Park Enthusiast? I may have seen a video of his. I'm not quite sure how many I've seen, though. So I'm probably going to stop at 10:30, so I'm probably going to cut off the questions soon. I'll try to get through what I can, but I'm going to have to stop at 10:30, so I apologize in advance. King Dakar Dragster. I prefer Dragster for the view and the restraints. Hello, it's Wazowski. Car Loren. Are you a fan of haunts? I like Halloween events just because it's extra chance to ride roller coasters, but I do like haunts if they're done well, like the ones at Knott's Scary Farm and Universal. Hello, it's Wazowski. Trim Break 6. What's the most annoying park policy you've experienced? So I'm going to say the queue line set up at Energy Landed, just how there's really no way to skip them. And even if the ride's a walk-on, you might have to take 10 minutes to get through line. Sejonius, I rode Kraken and Mako for the first time this summer. Mako is one of my favorite hyper coasters. The sustained airtime in the first half is amazing. Kraken's a pretty good floorless coaster. I find it can have a rattle if the train's not fully loaded, but it has a good layout. Sky Guy R12 Turn, next coaster, Kings Island, to permanently close. I have to think they'll be in Vertigo, given its low capacity, and that ride seems to break down a lot. Um, Sky Garage will turn next coaster Hershey Park to permanently close. I have to think RMC Wildcat. Airtime Cinema, favorite small scale Gerstlauer. It depends what you count as small scale. Like, for example, do you count Gold Rush as Slugharin? Um, yeah, I'll say that one, but I know I'm probably forgetting something off the top of my head. Sorry. Um, Coasters in perspective, absolutely. Next coaster to leave Dollywood. There's only one there I could realistically see leaving anytime. Well, actually, the one I can see is maybe Blazing Fury if they need to replace it, sort of like what Silver Dollar City's doing with Fire in the Hole. I'm not sure if that would happen or not. Um, Coaster fanboy, what theme park in the U.S. do you think will acquire the first Bermuda Blitz? I'm not sure, but I hope it happens. Tosia Smith, B&M Giga or Intamin Hyper? Um, it just depends how. Like, for example, I like Fury better than most Intamin Hypers, but there are some Intamin Hypers I still like better than Fury, so it depends. Uh, Yoshimongo, do you think Six Flags Great America should get an iBox RMC, or do you think it would be redundant with Goliath? It wouldn't be redundant with Goliath because Goliath is a lot different than the other RMCs because it doesn't have the rapid fire blitz of airtime hills. Hello, Thomas Van Horn. Yoshimongo, favorite night ride, lightning rod. Amazing, absolutely amazing night ride. It's my favorite coaster by day too. Imperial Coaster, worst steel coaster. Blue Tornado because it's painful. Alpha Swirl, what do you think is the best Batman the Ride clone you've been on? The ones at Magic Mountain, La Ronde, and over Georgia seem to run the fastest. Yoshimongo, what do you think is the most underrated coaster you've ridden? Surf Coaster Leviathan. I have a review on it, but that ride had some great airtime and laterals, which I was not expecting. Throwaway, do you ever think Kings Island will upgrade the Beast? That might be one that maybe Titan Track would be a good fit for in the future, just so, just so they can do a little less track work on it, because I know that ride, is a long ride and hard to maintain, probably. Trim Break 6, not taking into account downtime. What's the hardest time you've had getting a credit? So this is kind of a sad one, but the Orient Express owned by Rockwell Amusements, because I had been to a few of their fairs, but most of the operators weren't allowing adults on the ride. But then I finally found a fair where the operator allowed me on it, so I guess I'll say that one. Connor Lawfren, are you a fan of film? What's your favorite movie? I do like movies. I tend to prefer the nerdier ones. Raiders of the Lost Ark is my favorite film. Mondo Coasters, most anticipated new for 2022 coaster. Right now, I say Air Force One, just because I love Zadra. I love Untamed. It looks like the combo of those two. Night Winds Music, most overrated RMC or worst. So my least favorite RMC is Goliath at Great America, just because of how it's shorter than the others, but it's a very good ride for what it has. Skyga R12 Turn. Have you ridden Wicker Man? I have not. I saw it being built, but I missed it by a year. Twisted Gwazi, what coaster do you think Busch Gardens Tampa and Busch Gardens Williamsburg need? Busch Gardens Tampa could use a hyper coaster, even though Mako exists, but I'd love to see one in that park. Busch Gardens Williamsburg is a little trickier. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what that park needs. Maybe if they work with Mach, like a spinning coaster would work nice there. So it's 10:30. I'll answer the final questions I see up to the Connor Lawfren's question at 10:30, but then I'm going to cut it off. Imperial Coaster, what ride do you think will leave Frontier City next? I'm going to say Gunslinger, because that ride's been broken every time I've been there. And it seems like that's been an issue for a lot of people. Yoshimongo, if you could extend any coaster, what would you extend? I'd say Goliath at Six Flags Great America, just because that ride is, it's great for what it has, but it just doesn't have the quantity of the other RMCs. And if you could throw in, a few bunny hills low to the ground, that would make the ride, a much better RMC in my opinion. Night Winds Music, add one other Florida coaster to Islands of Adventure to round out their lineup. What do you pick? Let's see. So you have the big so you have, Velocicoaster, which has airtime and, it's just an all around package. Um, you have Hagrid's, which is a great themed experience. You have, um, let's see. You have Hulk for the positive G's. I'd say Space Mountain, so that way, if it does rain, you have an indoor attraction because that's really one thing that in Islands of Adventure that stinks is when it rains or there's a thunderstorm, you don't have that, a thrilling indoor coaster. Skygar 12 Turn, favorite Pixar movie. I love Toy Story. Tostio Smith, why aren't there more inverted top hats? I'm not sure, but I love the element. Yoshimongo, favorite Disneyland ride next to Rise of Resistance. Splash Mountain, that's always been a favorite of mine. Connor Loughran, what's your most intense airtime moment you've experienced? Um, Lightning Rod's quad down's incredible, but I'm gonna have to say the airtime on the Bunny Hills a coaster at Peony Playland because I genuinely thought I was going to get launched from the train because there's no seat belts and the airtime's stronger than Phoenix at Knoebels. So like I said, I was going to stop after that question just because it went on and at least it looks like I caught up to the questions at the end. But thanks again for joining. Thanks for enjoying the videos, and I'm going to keep making them. And yeah, have a good night. See you guys.